Hello, my amazing artists, and welcome back to Art Well Apart with me, Miss H. This week, I'm going to show you some ways to really level up your art. How to take your art from just meh to wowza. So, follow along with me as I show you some of these tips and tricks to really take your art to the next level. Before I start, I just want to give a quick shout out to Miss Scalen. She is an amazing teacher in Round Rock ISD, and she helped me with this lesson. So she put together these slides, and just want to give a big thanks to her. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm actually going to disappear, but I'm still here. So stay here. Don't leave me. Okay, artists, so let's start looking at how to take your art from meh to wowza. You can see here these two pictures of artwork. This artwork is at a lower level, but then the artist worked a lot harder to take their art to the next level, as you can see here. So let's dive in and learn how that artist did that. So in art, we always want to do our very best. And here are just some tips and tricks to help you create your very best work of art. So tip number 1 is to add texture to your artwork. Visual texture is when we make something look like it feels like something. So here, the artist added texture that looks like scales on a fish or maybe even feathers on a bird. You could add texture to a tree trunk to make the bark look like it feels rough, or texture to clouds to make them feel soft and fluffy. You could also add texture to grass or animals' fur. And that's just a few ways to add texture. There's a lot more. So adding texture will make your artwork level up by making it look more interesting and realistic. Tip number 2 is to darken the outline of shapes or objects. So here's an example where the artist darken the outline of the sphere. This creates contrast and makes the colors really pop. So you can darken the outline of different parts of your artwork for emphasis, which is a principle of design. Your eye is immediately drawn to this part of the artwork because of how bright and intense the contrast is between the outline here and the inside of the shape. So you could try that to just create some more areas of interest in your artwork. Tip number 3 is to color in one direction. This is a great way to make your artwork look nice and neat and really polished. So you can see on the gray sphere here, they kind of colored in a curved motion. So going out this way. That is to help to create the illusion of form, which will make the sphere appear as though it is 3D. On the blue sphere here, they colored straight up and down. What you don't want to do is to just color all over. That is scribbling, and scribbling looks really messy. So instead, take your art to the next level and focus on coloring in one direction. All right, tip number 4, try layering some colors. This artist started with a hot pink and then added a purple, which is close to the color pink, and so they added some layers of color here. When you add layers of color, this makes your art look more interesting. It can also add value, which is the lightness or darkness of an object or surface. Adding layers of color can create form, which will make things look more 3D and realistic. So you can see that here. This part is lighter, and then it becomes darker over here. The value gets darker. It makes it look as though it's more of a 3D shape. Also, you can see how they colored in one direction. Again, they made it more of a curved motion, which helps add to the 3D-ness of this shape. All right, Also, when you add layers of color, something to remember is to try to blend them together. This works really well when using crayons, colored pencils, or Prismacolors. You can also do this with watercolor or acrylic paint. To choose colors that work well together, think of colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Colors that are next to each other on the color wheel are related, and they look really good when layered on top of each other, as we can see right here. Tip number 5, add value by shading. You can shade things with pencils, colored pencils, crayons, oil pastels, and other materials. A lot of mediums or art supplies can create values. When you shade, you create form and you make your objects appear to look 3D. Imagine that the sun is here and it is shining on this part of the sphere right here. Now, where the sun is where you want a light value. And then on the opposite side down here is where you want to create a dark value. You can also draw a shadow to make your objects look even more realistic in 3D. So just remember, to create a dark value, you hold your pencil near the tip and press really hard. And then to create a light value, you got to scoot your hand back towards that eraser and press lightly with your pencil. Always shade with your pencil at an angle. You never want to hold it straight up and down. So you can always try to level up your art by adding some value with shading. Tip number 6 is to create a solid fill when coloring. So take your time and use your best coloring skills. When you take your time and color in things all the way, it really levels up your art. Try not to have any empty spaces showing, like up here. The most important thing to remember when coloring is to try your best and take your time. To create a masterpiece, it takes time, so don't rush. Let yourself create at your own pace. All right, artist, can I get a drum roll, please? Here is my last tip for you. Tip number 7, add details. You can see here that I have a hamburger that is just plain and boring looking. But when you add some details like the sesame seeds, lettuce, tomato, cheese, and the texture of the burger, you create a really beautiful and interesting piece of art. You can add details to your houses and trees and the people you draw. Just think about the details on clothing, right? And try to draw that. When you take the time to add texture, darken the outline, color in one direction, when you take the time to color in things completely, add layers, shade, and add details, you take your art to the next level. So try these tips and see how you can transform your art from meh to wowza. All right, let's take it to the next level.